when I talk about how I broke every one of my rules and how I lost that money and what a nightmare it was, let's go back to when I was a day trader. I used to keep a spiral notebook of every single trade I made. What time did I make it? Why did I make that trade? And then when I sold it, why did I sell it? Did I win? Did I lose? Whatever. Almost every single time that I lost money, I could go back to my rules of trading, and I had broken at least one of those rules.
Hey guys, George Uno with another edition of First and Worst here on REIclub's podcast, YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in. Now today I'm super excited because I have a guest today that is a former stand-up comedian, super funny guy, and he's always the butt of the joke for some reason in our mastermind. That's probably because he's one of the only guys with a sense of humor. So I'm super happy to have him here. His name is Mr. John Jackson, and he is the illustrious King of Lease Options. Is that right, John?
That is right, and don't let anybody tell you any different. I'm the king, nobody else is. The King of Lease Options, baby. You know what? I did not give myself that name. That was given to me in 2009, actually, by some goofy-looking guy out of St. Louis.
Oh.
I don't remember his Joe something. What's his name?
I don't know. It'll come to us, I'm sure.
Joe McCall, I think was his name. But he's the one that tagged me that, and it just stuck.
Well, Joe definitely knows his way around lease options, so I'm going to go ahead and trust his judgment on that. So, John, take us back before real estate. You were a stand-up comedian. What did that look like? Like, where are you from? What are you doing, man?
Yeah, and maybe I didn't realize that you knew that I used to be a stand-up comedian. But yeah, so so years and years ago, I was years ago. I worked for Radio Shack. Ugh. But when I was at 21, 22, something like that, 21, I think, started doing stand-up comedy. Did that on and off for about 10 years. Never, hit it big or anything. Never really pushed it seriously, I guess. But certainly loved the creativity and being on stage and, never knowing what was going to happen. So that on and off for about 10 years. Then got into... actually became a stay-at-home I was a stay-at-home dad, became a day trader, and was trading stocks and options for a couple years, and then decided I wanted to get into real estate and looked at multiple ways of getting real estate. Now this is in 2003, and there wasn't Craigslist or anything back then, and so there wasn't a whole lot out there to go on. But anyway, I looked at different ways to make money in real estate, and I kept running across, I would see these little blurbs about lease options. Well, I understood options because I traded options on the stock market, or the Chicago Board of Exchange, for those people watching that are super anal about New York. Anyway, it's a stock trading thing, George. But anyway, so I traded options. So I was like, hey, I get options, so I'll do this. And just totally winged it. I literally bought a $97 manual that had about just basic information. Actually, that's how Joe McCall and I met, because he and I were on the same forum. Get this, George. It was a forum, a web forum devoted specifically to lease options. The name of it, Naked Investor. Now, I was at Joe's house when his wife was standing there, and Joe told her, we told her the story, but we actually met on Naked Investor. And Joe immediately went into explanation mode, because Joe is like the squeaky clean guy, and I'm the opposite. So if his wife is standing there going, what? And he's like, no, it's like Naked-Investor. It's because he had to explain why it was called Naked Investor to, disprove to his wife he wasn't like surfing porn or something. Which I don't know if they had porn on that website. I'm sure they had porn back in 2003 online, but I digress. Where were we?
So you went from day trading stocks and options into real estate. Why the switch? What did you run into?
I don't know. I just there was I'd done stocks for a couple of years and wanted to get into real estate. I guess a friend of mine had a couple of rental houses, and I thought, well, that seems kind of neat. But he was only making like $150 a month at the time on them. So that doesn't seem like a lot. It seems like a lot of risk for not a lot of money. So I just started looking at real estate, and it was just when I ran across lease options that it just stuck, And then I took the idea of lease options and really refined it to where it was more of a cookie cutter system, where we were working with nice houses, nice people, and getting the people qualified within 1 year. So we just totally refined the whole way that lease options are done.
So you focus not just on the lease option part, but actually helping the tenant buyers qualify for the loan and refi you out of them, right?
Right. So we help the seller. What we're doing is we're helping a seller that can't sell and a buyer that can't buy. So the seller that's got the house in the market for 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, whatever. The buyer that self-employed, whatever the case may be, we need to help them get. We marry them together. We partner them together. Yeah.
Awesome. And were you living in Texas at that time?
Yeah, I've lived in Texas. I'm on probation. I can't leave Texas. That may be another podcast. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was, of course, I've been born and raised in Texas. Yeah.
Well, how did you get the lease options in Texas? Everybody says, "Oh, you can't do lease options in Texas." Don't ever, the internet's full of that junk.
Yeah, no. So I was already doing lease options for a couple of years before Texas drafted legislation about lease options. So I was knee deep in it. I was deep in the weeds when all this came up into the surface. So when the original draft of the law was presented, a bunch of investors got on the bandwagon, petitioning and calling up their representatives, trying to get this changed. Anyway, the final version of the bill that Rick Perry signed into law was dramatic. It wasn't even like the first draft. So the final bill was actually viable, but you had to have disclosures in your documents. If there was a mortgage, you had to disclose that and some other things. But because either people didn't read the law or because they spent too much time on webs, forums, just they get their legal advice from YouTube. They just think, oh, you can't do lease options in Texas. Well, they never read the law, So I spent about $30,000 on my documents over the years to have them refined and tightened up. But it really didn't slow us down any, And so then I became the only guy in Texas teaching lease options.
And you've been doing those for how long since successfully without, ending up on in another jail sentence?
Yeah. It'd be 18 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 18 years since that changed. So the laws changed in 2005 and it's 2023 right now. So no problems. Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to be ethical. You've got to do everything you can to make sure that everybody's taken care of. You've got the right documents. If you go online trying to find free documents for something, for real estate, then get out of real estate. You don't have a business.
Yeah.
You just don't.
It kind of comes all down to the contracts we use and not just being legal, but also being ethical. I like how you put that. If you're enjoying this episode, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. It really helps our channel grow. If you guys don't like this episode, I don't know what's wrong with you. Leave me a comment and tell me what's wrong with you. So, John, you're back there. You're on nakedinvestor.com, a very wholesome family website, by the way. How did you take down your first deal, and what did that look like?
Yeah, so the first deal, I spent a couple hours a night for about a week or 2 weeks cold calling people that were on buyowner.com. It was a website for sub-owners. Then that was horrific. That was almost more painful than this podcast, to be honest with you. And then I was driving for dollars. Dude, I was just driving like Tom Thumb and was just listening to some Scorpions and, cranking around, with the windows down, letting my hair flop. I used to have beautiful hair, George. You've probably seen pictures of me with beautiful hair. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's true.
Down to my nips. But anyway, so I was driving along and there was a sign in the yard that says for sub-owner. I called the guy up. Hey, would you saw your house here on Greenbrier or whatever. Would you be interested in, maybe doing a lease purchase? He goes, yeah, sure. Then I was like, oh, shoot. But you know what, George? When I decided I was going to do real estate, here's something I did. I spent $68 on a yard sign. A metal, I still have it. It's the ugliest metal yard sign you've ever seen. So that when I got a seller that said yes, boom, baby, I was ready. So he said yes. I got my contracts, which at the time were crap. Got my contracts signed. They had no idea what I was doing. Put my sign in the yard. It said leasing to buy and all this, and put a directional sign up at a cross street. And within 3 weeks, made $3,500. which in 2003 was a lot, right? Considering it took me 3 weeks. And then, matter of fact, George, it was so easy I felt bad. You think I'd be going, yeah, I'm a baller, blah, blah. And I did for a second. Then I was like, I still remember, George, that night laying in bed thinking, what have I done? Have I done something wrong? Because it was so easy, I felt bad. I thought, oh my God, is this legit? But then, I don't know, a couple weeks later, I was driving around again, saw another house like 8 blocks away. It was a homevestor house. So I call them up, hey, this is, because homevestors, they're investors. Call them up, hey, this is John, whatever I said. Hey, would you be interested in doing a lease option? And the guy goes, yeah, sure would. Lease option that house. Then they brought me another house. Suddenly they're bringing me, because they're rehabbing these houses and then bringing them to me. So now I'm doing another house. And then they tell the other franchises about me. Now I'm getting spreadsheets of houses. Next thing you know, daddy's in business, right? And, but I needed more inventory. So I was doing this full time now. Within 3 months, I was going, man. And so then I decided, I need more houses. I need more inventory. Where can I find, in an easy way, where can I find sellers? Where can I find the sellers? And I thought about it, and finally the light bulb moment went off. I thought, oh my God, I know where to find people that are trying to sell their house. The MLS. I'm like, yeah, because they're already trying to sell their house. Hello? What better place to find people that are trying to sell their house than people that are trying to sell their house? So I started having no clue what I was doing, started doing direct mail. I turned my living room into a mailing house, right? I would go to buy on a realtor.com, print off all these listings. Dude, I had to do it by hand back then. And that's the thing, George, is people now, they have all these tools, access to all these things. They have no excuse. You have no excuse because you can literally click a button, boom, 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 send direct mail. Click a button, send text messages. I had to print all this stuff off by hand. I was handwriting. No, then I had to cross-reference the tax records. It was a mess. But you know what? I was getting, that's when the phone started ringing. And that's when I got, boom, that's when it really took off, is when I was doing direct mail to listed houses.
Interesting. So take us back to that first deal, $3,500 in 3 weeks. And you still have that metal sign to this day. You're gonna have to send us a picture of that. You know that, right?
Yeah, I've got it. It's in my garage actually. And you know what's funny is that sign. I'm almost positive that sign has, get this. It has. I didn't have a logo, which doesn't matter, but it has the MasterCard and Visa emblem on it, as if I took credit cards. Dude, I didn't take credit cards. But you know why I did that? Because there's another guy. There's a builder in that area, a home builder, who would do this home trade up home thing. He did contract for deed back then. And on his signs, he had, it was smart buy houses, and he had a MasterCard and Visa symbol, because I guess he took credit cards. So I thought, well, okay, I guess I'll do the same thing, right? It's like you just copy. I'm like, well, he did it, so I did it. I had no way to. But you couldn't take a credit card for a down payment anyway, for me. But anyway. Yeah.
Great artists borrow, or good artists borrow, great artists steal, John. So there you go.
Yes.
All right. So now you're hooked up with the home investors. You're cranking out just lease options by the spreadsheet. Did you ever run into a deal that just gave you heartache or cost you money or just went horribly wrong?
Yeah. So fortunately, with what I do, it's not like wholesalers or rehabbers are like, oh, I went in there and then turns out it was on an Indian burial ground or something, right? But you don't get that with lease options. It's very clean and dry. It's just very easy, Mm-hmm. But I did have 2 houses that were nightmares. Not super exciting. One of them was the first sandwich lease option I tried to do, and a sandwich lease option is where you stay in the middle. So you've got it contracted for this price and this dollar. Where's my hand? This price, this dollar amount. Then you sublet it for this price and this dollar amount. So you're making a spread, you're getting an option fee, and you got equity at the end. It's a sandwich lease option. Mm-hmm. Well, people tend to think there's 2 strategies that people tend to gravitate towards when they shouldn't, and that's subject to and a sandwich lease option. If you've never done a real estate deal, I do not suggest doing a subject to or a sandwich lease option. Why? Because you're a fiduciary to that seller. You've got a responsibility to make those payments. And the one thing you never want to become in real estate, listen to this, guys, the one thing you don't ever want to become in real estate is the desperate seller. And if you've got to make a payment on a house, you've now put yourself in potentially harm's way of becoming the desperate seller. So on this deal, I broke all my rules, didn't do the homework like I should have, got into this deal, and I don't remember the numbers, doesn't matter, but got into this deal, and we had it for whatever. I'd made like an empty house payment on it, so now I became the desperate seller. Somebody came along that could fog a mirror. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't even know if they had that full down payment. I was like, I don't give a crap. They get in the house 3 months later, they stop paying, right? Hello, yeah, because they were deadbeats. Well, now I got to go through this whole thing to get them evicted, which I drug on too long. There was a lot of other stuff going on at the same time. Finally got in my house. I still got to make payments on this house. They move out. The house was so bad, I really wanted to call CPS because they had a child, and I knew the child was living in that condition. I thought, this isn't right. And fortunately, it was just a nightmare. It cost me over $10,000, which may not sound like a lot, but I was going through a lot of other business stuff at the time, and it was just painful. So I tell people, don't do a sandwich lease option unless you know what you're doing. And you stick to your rules, and you better have some reserves too. You better have a few months of reserves.
Yeah, ouch, man. 10,000 when you're doing lease options, and I'm sure all your other ones were just flying off the shelf, making money.
Yeah.
$3,000 in 3 weeks on your first one, so that must have been a wake-up call for you. But thanks for the advice, man. That's what we come here for, is to learn from you guys and learn from your mistakes.
Oh, and I was just going to say, when I talk about how I broke every one of my rules and how I lost that money and what a nightmare it was, let's go back to when I was a day trader. I used to keep a spiral notebook of every single trade I made. What time did I make it? Why did I make that trade? And then when I sold it, why did I sell it? Did I win? Did I lose? Whatever. Almost every single time that I lost money, I could go back to my rules of trading, and I had broken at least one of those rules. So what happens, though, is you create your rules from your mistakes. Same thing in real estate, same thing in business. You create your rules in real estate, you create your rules in business from your mistakes. I made so many mistakes last year. It was a disaster. And I'm still like kind of catching my breath from last year. It was such a mess. But from that, I learned a lot about myself and learned, created some new rules. But I tried to scale my business without really doing a deep dive and seeking advice of others beforehand, saying, hey, what about this? What do you think about this? And when I say others, I mean others that didn't have a vested interest, a third party, right? But it totally blew up in my face in a bad way. But because of that, George, I'm writing a book. Yeah, I'm writing a book, baby. It's called "Should I Scale My Business or Slip My Wrist?" I am, and I'm really actually excited about it because I think we need a roadmap on how do we scale a business. What are the common things we screw up on? What are the proper steps to make? And what do we need to look at? And also, where does the ego come into play when we're looking to scale?
John, for you, the word ego just surprises me, honestly.
You know what? I'm gonna say something here. A man once told me, he said, and this is, I love this saying. He said, "Your ego ain't your amigo," and I think that's so true. So we gotta keep it in check, man.
I love that. And I love that you're writing a book because, you're totally right. You make these rules and then you go and you break one or two because it's probably, the deal of a lifetime. And then you get burned. And then you go back and you say, that mistake, that rule, okay, that's why I have that rule. Then it's cemented for you. And not only did you do that for us, you're writing a book on it, which is, we're definitely going to have to put that up, get a link for that once you get that done. But great stuff, man. Great stuff.
Yeah, I'm actually taking what I'm doing with this book is because I don't have the answers, but other people do, right? So the idea behind this book isn't about me or my story. It's about the other people's stories and their experience. So I'm taking camera guy, Sheik. I don't know if you remember Sheik from the family. Sheik and I are going around, we're interviewing and getting tremendous interviews with some phenomenal business people. And a matter of fact, one of them that's on the docket, if you will, is Russ Whitney, who grew a $250 million event business, the largest in real estate. And boy, talk about a story there. But again, to go out and get this amazing video content and discussions and conversations from people that have scaled businesses, or maybe were scaling, lost everything, licked their wounds, came back. Okay, that's where the story is. That's where the magic is, right? Earlier this morning, I was on a call with Dave Metzler, who is a phenomenal business guy and sports agent, and actually Warren Moon's business partner. And he shared the story about, in his book, talks about losing, just losing everything, and then coming back. And but that's where the magic is, is in the when you've gotten to a certain level and you've lost a lot, you're like, wow, I gotta rebuild here, and how do we do it? That's where the magic is.
That's super cool. I mean, you've got the great business experience and the experience in failing a scaling, so to speak. But I love that you're going out and picking Russ Whitney's brain. I'm sure you've got guys up there, from our mastermind group that, man, they're just at a whole different level. They're like out of this freaking world. So that's super cool that you're doing that and taking that approach, because really that's what I feel like a lot of us miss. We're like, okay, I'm going to do this. But, man, like you said, you got to ask some people, some third parties who really know what they're doing, who have no vested interest, and that's how you really get to the truth. So super cool. I can't wait for that to come out.
Yeah, you got to know your KPIs. One is, where does your ego come into play? Two, you got to know your KPIs very well. Gross doesn't buy groceries. I want everybody to remember that. Gross doesn't buy groceries. But as small business people, we tend to look at gross. Why? Because it feeds our ego. That's the only thing gross feeds. You got to know your net. Where's money going out? Where can you tighten things up? Nicholas Nick, who I don't know if you've ever interviewed him or not, but Nicholas Nick was just talking about how, where it looks like he's on track to hit this year. For the first time, and I told him, I said, this is when you want to get lean. Where are there any holes? Where are there cracks? Where are there systems that aren't quite working right? Where's the machine? Some pieces that are working, but it's not quite clicking. That's where you want to tighten that up. There's something beautiful and also incredibly dangerous about the first time you hit $1 million gross. I don't know what it is about that turbulent air up there. When you see that, it feeds your ego. It's amazing. But man, it's a dangerous spot. And there's probably a window of, say, 1 to 5 million. I don't know what that window is, but man, I'm telling you, you hit $1 million gross for the first time, and it'll knock you right back down real quickly if you think you got there because you're a genius. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get that. I think Alex Hormozy says something about that. Like, getting to $1 million is one thing, and then you got to shift everything you do, how you think, that to get to 3 to 5. And then again at 10. So super cool. Super good advice, man.
Yeah.
So guys, if you guys want to learn more about John Jackson, he's got a lease options masterclass every other month or so. You guys should attend if you're interested in lease options. If you want to learn how to do those crazy complex things like sandwich lease options, you got to check that out. He's also got that book coming out. So if you guys want to see more about John Jackson, read some of his articles, see some of his videos on REIClub.com. Just go to REIClub.com/Jackson. That's JACKSON. REIClub.com/Jackson. So, John, I want to thank you so much for being here, sharing your advice with us, sharing your wisdom with us, and definitely keeping your ego in check today.
All right. Hey, George, it's been a lot of fun. The 5-hour energy just kicked in. I'm ready to go for another 20 minutes.
Awesome. Well, you know what? We're at 22. Hard stop for you. So here we go, John. All right, guys. It's George Uno with REI Club. Catch you guys on the next episode of First and Worst. Take care. Hey, thanks so much for listening to my mom's favorite podcast. And by the way, if you want to join us on REI Club to get access to free calculators, forums, directories, and a bunch of other resources that you're going to need to succeed in real estate, head to REIClub.com/pod and create your free account today. Thanks so much. I'll see you on there.